I'd like to welcome everyone again to Ignite the Spark. And when I'm talking about Ignite the Spark, I'm talking about how it relates to mentoring. I work with an organization, actually founded the organization. It's called Horizons for Girls. And we mentor middle school and high school students from throughout Sheboygan County. And what we're trying to do with these young ladies is we're trying to engage them and help them plan for their futures. And that can be a tough situation to try and do. They've got a lot of things that are affecting how they plan, how they think about their futures. And we're trying to ignite a spark. We're trying to get them excited about planning for the future. And when we're able to do that, it is very exciting when all of a sudden you're working with a young lady and she can at the beginning kind of be staring at you like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. And finally, you say something and you see a light bulb go off, and that's exciting. You know you've made a connection and you can build from that connection. My guest today is a lady that I've known for quite some time. This is Detective Tamara Remington. And Tamara, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and bouncing around his face, but we'll ignore that. But Tamara, I'd like you to introduce yourself and maybe tell our audience a little bit about how you and I met.
All right, I'm Tamara Remington. I'm a detective with Sheboygan Police Department, and I've been in law enforcement for 20 years. I've been in Sheboygan for 10, and prior to that, I was in San Jose, California as an officer for 10 years, ending up as a gang detective. But I met you years ago when I worked at Sheboygan South High as the school officer. And I remember hearing about this great new resource. We were so excited to hear about Horizons for Girls because we did see such a need for especially young females. There are many more programs, it seemed, for boys, and really nothing to fill that void. So we were so happy when Horizons for Girls came and you introduced yourself at South High. And then I got promoted to detective, and since then I've been in touch with you a great deal to work together to help the young ladies in our community. So I'm very grateful, and I know our community is grateful for you.
What are some of those things that you see impacting these young ladies that are affecting the many things that they've got going on that they've got to deal with? What are some of those?
Our kids today have a lot more obstacles and things to overcome that we didn't have back when we were growing up, and I think the internet is a huge part of that. I'm part of the Human Trafficking Task Force. We meet in Milwaukee once a month, and it's law enforcement from around the southeastern portion of Wisconsin, and we really have discussed how over 75% of these kind of trafficking issues happen on the internet, happen on social media. So I think that is really a big issue that our kids are dealing with. And also seeing the trend of so many, our families, our moms and dads are working so much, or the split households, that kind of thing. And so kids are on their own a lot more, and then they rely on the social media to fill that void where families used to be the part of the kid.
It's interesting when I'm talking to a new student, and one of the things I always like to do with the students that the student and I do this one-on-one, and we do a timeline. And from when I was born to today, I put on a piece of paper everything that I think is important that's happened to me. At the same time, the student is doing that. And we take about 10 to 15 minutes to put that information down, and then we explain to the other person what we've put down. And it's always amazing to me, the family tree is totally different from when I grew up. When I went to grade school, there was only one student that came from a single parent family. All of my other classmates had two parents. And now I look at these families and there's birth mom and dad, then there's a split, so then there's new spouses or live-in partners, and then there's new children, and the family tree is very complicated. So that's definitely a challenge, and sometimes even when I'm talking to a social worker or whoever the referral source might be, I say, okay, who's the best person to talk to? Because I do need to have guardianship approval before we start working with a girl. But then again, that student might not necessarily be living with who that legal guardian is, and that definitely is a challenge.
Yes.
Now I know tomorrow you're going to spend a little bit of time with my students and talk to them about some of the issues, some of the things that you think they could have some control over. What are some of the behaviors what are some of the should and should nots? And give me some thoughts about what you want to share with the kids tomorrow.
Some of just the basics that are so important reference safety. I see internet safety as a key. I see social media putting too much information out there. When myself and Mai Zhang from Safe Harbor go into the different classrooms to speak to students, they all kind of laugh when we say, do you know of a kid that puts too much information out there? I mean, we can all think of somebody who puts too much out there. But we actually have predators that are feeding on that. Many kids find that is surprising. They said, oh, surely somebody isn't really taking the time and interest in me. But if you think about it, especially with sex trafficking, selling a person over and over again is far more profitable than selling a drug or a gun one time. So yes, we see it. Predators do spend a lot of time
cultivating
absolutely. And so we would really urge kids and actually adults to really limit. I mean, do you really know those 856 people on Facebook? You need to start paring it down to who you really know, because otherwise we see a lot of problems, safety issues. There really are predators on things such as Kik and Instagram and Snapchat, all the things that our youth are into. And these are very anonymous ways for predators, for suspects to get our kids and our families. So we see a lot of issues there. So that's something I would like to talk to the kids about. And also talking about social media and phones. Everybody has one. When we do interview pimps, the sex traffickers, they said they absolutely love it that our kids are buried in their phones, in their devices. You see it. We could go out now and see people just walking around buried in their devices. So we need to put those devices away and pay attention to our surroundings, just like just like the past. I think we need to kind of slow down and really look around and be aware so that we don't become victims. So that's something that I would like to talk to the kids about.
Well, I know you and I were talking about, before we started the show, we were talking about, I mentioned that I had seen a family at a restaurant, and here's mom and dad and a couple of kids, and the kids are talking to each other via texting. They're not talking face to face. And I keep reading a lot of research that talks about having more face-to-face time versus screen time. And again, when I looked at the research, and they were talking about how much the TV or the computer is becoming almost the babysitter for those kids after school, that they might come home, but there isn't a parent or an adult there maybe, and they're spending time online. And it's scary what's out there online, and I don't think adults always know what's out, what their youth are getting into online.
Yes, and a lot of the predators are using these different, like the big trend right now is meetme.com. A lot of our kids are going on these sites and really meeting people from out of the area, and that does cause a problem for law enforcement, for the community, for our kids, and safety in general, when our kids are putting themselves, in these dangerous situations, and it's all quite anonymous at some points. So, and less family time. We are seeing, I had one girl say her dream was just to sit down and have dinner with the family. She said, her parents both worked, and she was able to have anything she wanted materialistically, any new shoes, clothes, games. She said, but what she was craving was that family time at the dinner table, and she didn't have that, so a pimp was able to swoop in and provide that time. And he said, we are a family, and I'm going to spend time. So we do see that. It's very important for families, and if not families, that's the importance of the mentoring piece. If families aren't able to have that quality time, then mentors, it's really important for them to step in and be that for a kid.
And that adult that can really be that person that can maybe go to with a question or spend time with. One of the very exciting pieces of what we do with Horizons for Girls is when somebody decides that they want to be a mentor, there's obviously screening and training and all of that they go through. But until they've done at least a minimum, they've done 5 trainings and they have done 20 hours of mentoring in a group setting, they're not even allowed to do one-on-one mentoring. But once they've done that, they become certified. And what some of our mentors and our students have been able to do is then do something, maybe take in a show, or we've got a grant that has to do with keeping the arts alive. Now, art is very, very broad. So one of our students and a mentor were able to take a class on making stained glass. They had a ball. One of the students went to a show down in Milwaukee. They had a wonderful time. So the student requests the funding, and then the registration for that art class or the funding for those tickets to that theater show were paid for through the grant. And that's exciting because, again, you can't expect that single mom to be doing everything. So we become that secondary resource, and we really try to help the families broaden their perspective. And that's exciting when we do that. It was fun the other day. I was talking to a young lady. She'll be a junior this year, and she's got a job. She's working at McDonald's, and we were having breakfast the other day, and she was talking about what are her plans. I said, well, what do you think you want to do after school? And she kind of sighed, and she said, well, let's see. Dad was in the Army. Grandpa was in the Army. My uncle was in the Army. So I guess I'll go in the Army. I said, well, that's not bad. That's a good thing. There are a lot of great benefits, some great things. I said, well, tell me more. What do you like to do? What are you doing this summer? What are you having fun with? And she started talking about some fishing trips that she had been doing. And I said, what about the DNR? I said, I don't know a lot about the DNR, but I said, it's part of the government. There's probably some pretty good benefits, probably not bad pay, and probably very interesting. Whether you're a game warden, or you're in a lab doing some testing, or you're working on a game farm taking some pheasants that are raised and then releasing them into the wild, or fish that they raise. I mean, there's some pretty cool things you could be doing. And she got so excited. And it was like, that's really what we like to do, is really bring out something that, oh, yeah, I could do that. So now I've got a question for you. What made you decide to get into law enforcement?
Actually, I studied in Santa Barbara to go into advertising. That was really my goal, and to be a producer of TV and radio commercials. So I went to San Francisco and worked at an ad agency for 5 years and reached my goal of becoming a producer, but then my dear friend got robbed at gunpoint in front of my house, and long story short, we had to deal with police a lot, and I saw the ones that took the time to help him heal, and yeah, I went down and applied, and because I wanted to be one of those that actually took the time and helped people heal, and got into San Jose Police Department and have had no regrets. It's really almost a calling. Mm-hmm. And my advertising buddies came down to my police graduation. It was very nice, but I mean, just to go from one goal to another. And I actually did speak with a child actually at a court hearing. I had to take some kids down to Milwaukee for court, and this one asked me, can I be anything I want to be? Remington, can I be anything I want to be? Absolutely. This kid had never heard from a parent that you should dream and you know, really make what you want for your future. So that is the importance of being a mentor, being an important, to have that bond with kids, I think is so important. So it was nice to be able to share that with a kid.
Well, we're excited because we just became an affiliate of an organization called Inspire Sheboygan, and it's a collaborative effort between educators and employers trying to bring more work experience to the students. So, in fact, yesterday I went through some of the basic training of what's all available on the website. So now I'm going to have a lot more resources. I'll have a database of companies that offer job shadowing experiences so that I can share that with my students. And I think that's exciting because I really, when I went to school, I had no idea what I was going to do. You know, my parents ran a business, and I thought, well, maybe someday I could run that. I could have that business and I could run it. I am the oldest, of course. I'm the most important, but it was interesting. I started as a secretary at what was Lee's department store in downtown Plymouth, and I absolutely hated it. Taking shorthand and doing business letters and taking care of inventory, and absolutely hated that. And it was interesting again because then after I became married and I looked at the newspaper and I'm looking at jobs and I'm seeing a job, the radio station here in town, looking for a salesperson. Well, as I grew up, there was a radio station right next to the motel. And my mother would always tell me and my sisters, you have to stay away from that radio station because radio people, oh, it's awful the things that happen at the radio station. Stay away. So I said, okay, I have to go check this out. Mom said I needed to stay away. I have to go find out why I needed to stay away. And guess what? I spent 22 years in radio. I thought that's what I was going to retire from. It wasn't, but it certainly gave me a lot of experiences that I could grow and develop from. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what really helped take me to where I am now, which is more the nonprofit, the caring that you talk about, really trying to help. And that's really, I think, what Horizons is trying to do. Now, if you're looking at the calendar and you're planning on how you might be able to help coming up, and you say, well, I don't know if I could be a mentor, I don't know if that's the thing for me. We've got a really fun event that comes up the end of September. It's the last Saturday in September, September 26th, and they've got a festival on the riverfront called Harvest Fest, and the little kids get to paint pumpkins and everything. We help with that and face painting. But before that starts, there's a marathon, Harvest Fest half marathon, and a 10K. They start at Blue Harbor, they go all the way to Terry Andre and come back. Not for me, sorry. I'm not the big, but we volunteer and we solicit other people to volunteer to be at all of the various intersections to monitor and help the runners and monitor traffic and make sure that the runners, because it's a competitive race, so obviously they want to be able to go as fast as they can and not have to worry about traffic. So we have 2 volunteers at every single intersection. So anybody watching this would be perfect to just spend a couple of hours on a Saturday helping at an intersection and get a taste of what it is we do. What might you have coming up that you think you might want to make sure the public know about? I know you just did the night out thing.
National Night Out, and there is a walk for human trafficking awareness coming up October 18th, I believe. That'll be at Fountain Park. That's being put on in the community. I'm just aware of that, so that seems like a really good thing to bring awareness. That's always important.
Who should they talk to about that? Do you have a contact that they can?
Maybe I can get that for you, and
okay.
Then
yeah, if anybody's interested, definitely feel free to contact me through Horizons, and I will get that information to the viewers. But again, that human trafficking, whenever I bring that topic up, people go, not here in Sheboygan, can't be happening. And obviously you're seeing it more and more and more.
Yes, I'm just one detective and I have multiple cases. And actually we have a sentencing that'll be happening mid-September for a child sex trafficker here in the community. So, I mean, it definitely is here and we just need to get the awareness. I am impressed with Sheboygan, though. Those that hear about it, I mean, the different community groups are definitely getting the word out there. And I appreciate Horizons for Girls, too, for wanting to be a part of the education, the awareness, and the solution. So.
Yeah, because again, you know, our youth are our future, and I think we really do need to inspire them to go for whatever it is they want to do.
Yes.
Question for you, if a student out there thinks they might be interested in some type of something in law enforcement, what's the best way to look at that a little bit further? We
have some great programs. We have the Explorers Post, and that is available. You can look it up on the Sheboygan PD website. So we have some officers that have a group every year and walk them through what it's like to be a police officer. And then they can actually become involved in helping us with parades and that kind of thing. They're always very helpful at 4th of July with the different events. So that's a great experience. National Night Out is a great way to come and see, you know, different aspects of law enforcement. And also just getting to know your school resource officer at the different schools, coming for a tour at the police department. There are lots of really great opportunities, and also getting in touch with someone like you or the STARS program where they can put the kid in touch with us.
Okay.
Like you did with the kid who's interested in DNR now. So that's great that you ignited that spark.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is making sure that you can start their thinking and get them engaged in their education. The one statistic I always love to share with mentors is, and I think this was from Search Institute, they were saying that every day 7,000 kids are dropping out of school. It's like, wow, you know, we've got to stop that. And even if they're still physically showing up, are they really engaged in what's going on?